Okay, today we are going to talk about the senior research project Annotated Bibliography. This is the next phase in this senior research project once you have completed the research journals. So what is an annotated bibliography? Some of you have never heard this term before. So let's break it down. The first word of this term is annotated. What does annotate mean? To take notes of some sort. And the word bibliography is just a list of sources used in research. We tend to use the term works cited page, which just means the texts that have been cited within the document. So in other words, an annotated bibliography is simply a list of sources that is used in your research. But instead of just a list of sources like we're used to, we also include a summary and some sort of evaluative analysis on each source. This is what an entry for an annotated bibliography would look like. You are all doing 5 sources, so you would have this 5 times. Okay, it seems like a lot of work, however, you've already done much of the legwork for this assignment if you already submitted your research journals. So on this entry, first we start with the actual works cited entry. That's at the very top. Anne Lamott is the author. That's the source. Then we have 3 very short paragraphs that follow, and all of this makes up an annotated bibliography entry. And again, I can't emphasize this enough. You do this process, these 4 things, source and 3 paragraphs, for all 5 of the sources that you have researched for this project. How can you figure out how to cite using MLA accurate citations? Well, I showed you guys at the beginning of this process, the OWL at Purdue. It's an excellent website. Citing with all these crazy new technologies is not easy. So do your best. Believe it or not, if you follow the OWL at Purdue's template and just plug and chug the information, you should be good to go. So just looking at this citation that I have on here, Anne Lamott is the author. I can tell because there's quotation marks around the first piece of information here, some instructions on writing in life, that is the name of the article. And that is why it's so crucial that you guys cite, punctuate the names of the articles, the names of the journals, the names of the databases correctly. Engaging language learners through technology integration, theories, application, and outcomes. That is the name of the journal. Then we have the year, the page numbers, the database, so on and so forth. So plug and chug, that's it. On the OWL at Purdue, the 2 most common entries that y'all will use is under the, on the left-hand side, there's a tab that says MLA Electronic Sources. On that tab, you will probably use the most the one that says scholarly article from an online journal and also article from an online database. There's a difference. Remember, a journal is a fancy way of saying an academic magazine. So if you're using a journal, that means that on your screen, when you're looking at the information, you should see the name of the journal, the volume number or the issue number, the pages. If that stuff isn't all there, it's not from a journal. If that stuff isn't there, it's probably simply an article on an online database. And so use your best judgment, please. Use your brains. Use your common sense. If you see Education Weekly Scholarly Journal, then you know, hey, that's a journal. You just use your brains. Okay, so let's look at this actual entry that I have created. We're going to read over each paragraph, and I'm going to ask you what each paragraph is actually doing. This is, believe it or not as complicated as it might look. So here we have our first paragraph. I wrote, Lamott offers sane advice for those struggling with the anxieties of writing, but her main project seems to be offering the reader a reality check regarding writing, publishing, and struggling with one's own imperfect humanity in the progress. Rather than a practical guide to producing and/or publishing, this text is indispensable because of its honest perspective, its down-to-earth humor, and its encouraging approach. So what is this first paragraph doing? Hopefully, you're seeing that this is a summary. The first paragraph of your annotated bibliography entry will be a summary. What is the document? And what are the main arguments being made within that source? For your research journals, you've already done most, if not all, of this work. If someone were to ask you what this text was about, in this first paragraph of the entry, that's where you have an opportunity to explain it. So now let's look at the second paragraph. First is a summary. Now we move into the second. Anne Lamott is a graduate of Drew School. She was also awarded a Guggenheim Fellowship in 1985, as well as being inducted into the California Hall of Fame in 2010. Her text offers honest advice on the nature of a writing life, complete with its insecurities and failures. Taking a humorous approach to the realities of being a writer, the sections in her text are wry and anecdotal and offer advice on everything from plot development to jealousy, from perfectionism to struggling with one's own internal critic. In the process, Lamott includes writing exercises designed to be both productive and fun. Okay, so the second paragraph is doing something different than the first. The second paragraph is hitting on some real guiding questions about evaluating the source. Now that you've summarized it and you've explained to me the big ideas, now is it a quality source? Is it a useful source? And so here are some guiding questions for you. I would have really liked for my example, shame on me, to include information about reliability. I would have hit on, or I should have hit on in my paragraph, this is a lesson that you should always proofread, I should have hit on in my paragraph that her article was published in a very well-renowned text that both educators and those looking to get into the field of writing both rely on. It's a very reliable and noteworthy document. And then I would ask myself, well, why is it noteworthy? Okay, let's look at some of the people who've created this journal. Let's look at her qualifications, and I did hit on that slightly, but I should have hit on it quite a bit more. Is it biased or objective? That's something else that I probably should have hit on a little bit better. Biased means that it's clearly stating her opinions without just stating facts. Objective means fact-based. Sometimes objective pieces are better for research, and then you can make your own argument based on the source. Biased sources happen. They're unfortunately now in 2019 more and more common. As long as you know that it's biased, then you can use it. Because for this paper, for this project, you are creating your own argument about an issue. And so the second paragraph is all an assessment. You've probably done some of this already in your research journals as well. And then finally, the third paragraph is doing something very different. Third paragraph says, specifically, this source will be used in the counterclaim, counterargument portion of my essay. The text will be used to acknowledge the opposing side. Furthermore, chapters in this text or sections in this text could be easily included in the curriculum for a writing class. Several of the sections in Part 1 address the writing process and would serve to generate discussion on students' own drafting and revising. Some of the writing exercises could also be appropriate for generating classroom exercises. So what is this last section doing? We have a summary, then we have an assessment on the quality of the source, and now we move into, well, what the heck are you going to do with this source? You've deemed it appropriate because it's one of the 5 on your annotated bibliography. So now how do you plan on using the source in your research or in your final product of an essay? Are you going to use it in the argument? What specific argument will you be trying to make using that source? Is it going to help you with your counter-argument paragraph? Maybe it presents the opposite side. Are there any stats in particular that you think will be helpful? Has it changed your mind on the topic? So the last paragraph is all a reflection. Now that you've summarized and evaluated the quality of the source, what are you going to do with it, really? As we're going through this, if you're thinking, I've already done that, then that means you did a really good job on your research journals, because most, if not all, of the information for your annotated bibliography should be on those journals. Now you just have to repurpose and relocate where that information goes. So you've done most of the work, and now you're just going to plug in that information into the correct location, really following the formatting of an annotated bibliography per MLA. If you're thinking right now, oh, I did some of this, but not all of it, that's totally fine. You guys have the URLs. I asked you to include the URL on your research journals, not for me, but for you, so that now you have the link. Go back and reread the source. If you didn't have enough information on your research journals for whatever reason, go back and look at the source. But I'm hoping that the majority of the work, or at least a good chunk of the work, was already done on those journals. That was the goal. Okay, so that's what an entry looks like. I already mentioned to you, you have to have 5 of these. So what would it look like on a paper? You will submit all 5 of these entries back to back to back on one document. So here's an example. I was too lazy to create a second example of an entry for you. So if you're looking at this screen and you see the same entry twice, you're not wrong. So this is what an actual Word document would look like. We have Anne Lamott as our first entry. We also have her for the second, but use your imagination. In other words, you're not submitting a different one of these on a different piece of paper for each. It's all going to follow each other in one document. On the top, you'll notice the title is Annotated Bibliography, and above that we have our MLA header and page numbers. There's a big problem with this example, and I'm hoping that as you're looking at it, you're able to pick up on this. There is a big MLA issue with my fake example here. And because this is a video, I can't have audience participation. So I'm going to tell you that this should all be double spaced. So your annotated bibliography that you submit to me will be really long, really long. It's probably going to be like 7 or 8 pages because it's double spaced. All of this should be double spaced. The header, the works cited entries, the Lamott and some instructions, that, and every piece of information in the paragraph, of all paragraphs. So the whole thing. Type it up like normal, highlight the whole document, double space the whole thing. You should notice on here that we have a hanging indent. This is the formatting. Yours should look just like mine. So the only thing that's starting at the beginning of each line on Word is the first word of your works cited entry, Lamott. If you don't have an author, then follow the OWL at Purdue. Nothing wrong with that. But notice that everything else is bumped in. I don't know why, but this is just the way that it is. So please follow that, be cognizant of that. So just a refresher for your senior research project, you should have 5 sources on your annotated bib. 4 should directly benefit whatever you're trying to argue, and 1 should be one of the opposing viewpoints. And I will teach you guys soon how to write a counter-argument paragraph using it. Here are some tips about MLA formatting. Remember, you need a header, page numbers. You should be using 12-point Times New Roman font, 1-inch margins. So most of the time Word and Google Docs, does this automatically. Don't get crazy with the margins. The whole document should be double spaced. It should be in alphabetical order. So my example, Lamott, that's an L. Whatever the first letter is of your entry, whether it be last name or title, first letter of the entry should be alphabetized. So if my first was Lamott and my second was Velasquez, Lamott should come first, then Velasquez. So you'll alphabetically organize the 5 sources. Hanging indents, just like I mentioned, and the whole thing should be written in very formal language, third person, no I, no you, none of that crap. It's all going to be formal, very formal. In your research journals, you might not have been as formal. That's okay. That was a note-taking process. Now translate that information onto this document and have it be academically formal voice, please. So your annotated bibliography in its entirety is due to me on Turnitin.com by 11:59 p.m. on Tuesday the 12th. So you have between now and Tuesday to take all this information that you did in your research journals and plug it in. Make sure it's formatted correctly, put the final tweaks on it. And remember, all of these small grades count as minors or now formatives. The big grade, the major, the summative will be the final paper. But all of these are going in as like homework, classwork grades. So please do try to get this in on time. No late work and honors, so if you submit it late, I'll still give you feedback on it, but it doesn't count as a grade. Okay. If you guys have any questions before this deadline, please email me and I will gladly help you out. Remember, you can also come in most days during first period. Unfortunately, this Friday, I'm not as available during first as usual, but Monday, the 11th, the day before this thing is due, please come in during first. I'm available and I'm here to help you if you need it. If you're in blended, if you're in my traditional sections, I'll see you in class and I can help you in class. Okay, good luck.